Yann LeCun, for those unfamiliar with the name, is one of the so-called godfathers of artificial intelligence, a title meant to imbue his work with a sense of pioneering grandeur. As the chief AI scientist at Meta and a professor at New York University, his credentials are indisputable, his influence enormous. He has helped lay the very foundations upon which the current AI revolution stands, and for that he has won the prestigious Turing Award, often described as the Nobel Prize of Computer Science. Yet, for all his accolades and contributions, there is something deeply troubling about LeCun's recent remarks regarding the supposed limitations of AI. In an attempt to downplay the hype surrounding artificial general intelligence, LeCun made the absurd claim that today's AI isn't even as smart as a house cat. It is here, in this spectacularly misguided comparison, that we glimpse the true depths of his ignorance. A misunderstanding so profound that it should give anyone pause. Well, let's dive into this, shall we? LeCun's cat metaphor is meant to trivialize the intelligence of animals in order to underscore his skepticism about AI's capabilities. But in doing so, LeCun reveals a poverty of imagination, a kind of sterile technocrat's view of the world that reduces intelligence to the ability to perform functions that can be measured, modeled, and above all, coded. What LeCun misses, and tragically so, given the scope of his influence, is that even the so-called simple intelligence of a house cat is far more nuanced, complex, and impressive than his reductionist analysis would have us believe. First of all, cats, like many animals, possess a form of intelligence that is fluid, adaptive, and social. They learn through experience, they strategize, and they adjust their behavior based on context. They understand spatial reasoning, they manipulate their environment and their humans, and they certainly have long-term memory. If Yann would ever pause from his AI-building binge to actually observe a cat, he'd realize that cats possess a sharp understanding of cause and effect, much like many of us, and a wily cunning that even boomers of his generation often fail to display. In fact, let's be clear, most house cats I've encountered exhibit far more practical intelligence than the average member of the boomer generation. Those perennial technophobes who still struggle to operate a basic smartphone. If LeCun thinks that surpassing cat-level intelligence is some great technological hurdle, he'd be stunned to learn that most cats are already well ahead of his contemporaries when it comes to adaptive problem-solving. The average cat can deduce how to open a cupboard in search of food, while the average boomer is still fumbling with the remote. That's not a trivial difference, Yann. But here is the most delicious irony in all this. LeCun seems to think that comparing AI to a cat is somehow diminishing to AI, when in fact the real punchline is this. The possibility of creating an entity with subhuman intelligence but with the mathematical prowess of a supercomputer is exactly what makes AI extraordinary. To mimic language, pass vast amounts of data, perform intricate calculations, and yet lack the general intelligence of a cat, well, that is no failure. It is the miracle of machine learning. What LeCun doesn't seem to grasp is that this dumb AI, as he frames it, is already transcendent precisely because it achieves feats no cat, or human for that matter, could ever dream of. Having a familiar of subhuman intelligence with complete mastery over mathematics and computational analysis, my dear Yann, this is what should leave you breathless, not shrugging dismissively like some Parisian intellectual too cynical for his own good. LeCun's lament that AI isn't yet smarter than a cat says more about his narrow conception of intelligence than it does about the state of AI. Intelligence isn't some monolithic quality that can be boiled down to problem-solving alone. If it were, many of LeCun's contemporaries in Silicon Valley would be found wanting. Intelligence is varied, contextual, and often deeply connected to environment and experience. Things that both cats and, yes, even today's AI systems handle in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. LeCun would do well to re-examine his assumptions. The fact that today's AI lacks the reasoning of a house cat does not, in fact, trivialize AI. It illustrates the marvel of its capabilities, a system that, despite being dumb by biological standards, can sift through terabytes of data, solve complex problems, and outwit the best of us in chess, Go, and language prediction. LeCun's mistake is in thinking that intelligence must mimic our own to be impressive. His remarks betray the woeful intellectual tunnel vision of someone who, while an expert in his field, seems to have missed the broader point entirely. We should not be too harsh on Yann LeCun. After all, many great minds have been blinded by their own expertise. But let's not pretend that his metaphor about cats is some profound insight. If anything, it only reveals how little he understands about intelligence, both artificial and natural. And for that, dear reader, LeCun deserves our pity, not our awe. The real lesson here? Watch the cat. It may just teach us more about intelligence than all of LeCun's algorithms ever will.